Hi there, my name is Bode Ayodele, and once again, you're welcome to another edition of Go For It. Go For It takes a look at the things you need to do, especially the processes you need to take, the pathways you need to follow, and the thought process that you need to maintain for you to succeed. Like we did in the last edition, today again we're going to take a look at a few excerpts from my book, Acquiring Success Through the Amazing Power of Thought. Now, I'm going to read a quote from the book. On page 36, it says, "Your attitude determines your altitude." This is a common saying. It suggests the fact that how you approach each circumstance determines what you get out of it. How you think determines how far you soar above the problems of life. The reason why how you think is important is that the way you think determines what you do next. If you feel that trying to make an attempt towards achieving something is not going to work out, then you're not going to do it. So, how you take a look at the challenges, the problems that you experience in life is what will determine what you're going to do next. And how you take a look at these problems is dependent upon how you think. This is one of the reasons why you have to maintain a positive mental attitude. How many times have you looked at a situation or a circumstance negatively? Maybe you missed a flight and you spent almost 2 days crying and regretting that you didn't get up early. You spent almost a week blaming yourself for what you did wrong, only to discover sometime later that the event you planned to go for didn't hold. Or had it been you were there, something negative would have happened. Probably there was, a bomb scare, or somebody was hurt. And you realize that your not going was actually a blessing in disguise. The problem is not the fact that you didn't embark upon the journey. The problem is that you lost something else. What you lost is what you could have gained the time you were worrying. So if you were to travel on a Sunday and you spent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday thinking about it, lying down on your bed at home, groaning and moaning and saying, "Oh, why did I miss this flight? Why couldn't I have left earlier?" And you start telling off your staff or other members of your family. When you eventually discover that you didn't really miss anything, or let's assume what you missed, you end up getting it twice or 3 times over. And you say, "Oh, I didn't miss anything." Yes, in one sense you didn't miss anything, but in the other sense, you missed what you could have gained over those 3 days that you were worrying. Therefore, always have a positive attitude. The moment something negative happens to you, let the negative thoughts about it end there. Thereafter, go about living your life positively. Say, "It doesn't matter. That will be taken care of later." Make sure you positively, judiciously utilize the time after that event, so that later on, in retrospect, when you take a look at the aftermath of that event, you won't have anything to regret. That, "Oh, it is true, I missed an opportunity, but I gained it twice or thrice later. And as a matter of fact, it didn't bother me, so I didn't lose anything." Now, just before we close, I will give you a short story. There was a man who was about to take his final exams. And in the final exam, the week of the final exam, he had 3 papers to take. He took the first paper and it was very successful. The second paper, he misinterpreted the time. He didn't know that there was only one paper each day. So he was of the impression that the second paper was actually the second paper of the second day rather than the first paper. So in other words, there was one paper per day, just one paper, but he felt there were days when there were two papers. So he was looking at whether his paper was the first or the second, and he wrongly misinterpreted that he had the second paper for the second day instead of the only paper which was the first paper. So rather than going to the exam hall for 12 o'clock, he headed out for 2 o'clock. He got there around 1:30 p.m. only to discover that he had around 30 minutes left, and the head examiner refused to allow him in. Now, we are talking about a first-class student, an excellent student, an exceptionally good one. He had two things to think, and he had two possible thought processes to take. One, to spend the time between when he took the paper and when the exam board will sit and decide, and when the result would eventually be out, which would be, we're talking about a matter of months, to be thinking over and over how he had missed an opportunity of taking that exam and completing his papers within time. Or he had the other option of telling himself he hasn't lost anything and that it's not something that he should bother about, and going on living life as if he had taken the exam and he had excelled. Now, one thing that he needed to remember was that he actually did take the assignment, which was 40% of the 100% marks obtainable for that course. Now, because he is a positive thinker, he chose to look at it from a positive perspective, and he did not allow it to bother him as much as the thought kept coming. Oh, why did you miss this paper? Oh, there's nothing that you're going to do. You're going to have to repeat a semester. Oh, imagine how people are going to look at you. An exceptionally brilliant student, a student that has had virtually 70% and above in every single paper of his. But he fought those negative demons. He overcame them and he said, no, I'm going to remain positive. 2 months later, when the results eventually came out, what happened is that because he had performed exceptionally well in his previous papers and he scored the exact marks required to pass that paper in his assignment, the exact marks required, which he wasn't aware of, there was a clause in the school's regulations that if you obtain 37, remember, he was supposed to, the maximum obtainable is 40 in the test, while the exam was supposed to be 60. But the school regulation says if you have 37, it was an internal rule which the students were not aware of, then you, if that's the only paper, rather than being asked to repeat, then they should give you pass. So this man was still able to do exceptionally well despite he only had 37 in that paper and he didn't have to repeat. Imagine the time he would have spent mourning and thinking negatively if he had chosen to look at that circumstance negatively. Listeners, I want you to understand the power of positive thinking. Every time you think positively, you do something worthwhile. If you wake up happy, it is most likely that you are going to achieve something worthwhile on that day. If you wake up believing in yourself, you are going to look out for something that is going to reinforce that positive belief. Never ever be of the opinion that positive thoughts don't count. And the same goes for positive confessions, because when you speak positively, you think positively. I'm going to leave you here this week, but just before I go, I want to remind you, go for it. Achieve your dreams.